Good afternoon, this is Frank at Korea, and I'm going to give you a quick overview on the Florida recount. What I am not going to do in this video is be very legalese. I'm not a lawyer, don't plan to become one, unless you've got a ton of money and help me pay to go to school. But what I am going to do is going to give you a quick overview on the recounts and what layman's legal terms that may be used to go through with their various recount in court strategies. So like and subscribe and comment below, especially you legal people. You can tell me what the actual legal precedent is, but I'm going to give you the opinion of what they are going to say or do in their various recounts. So right now, as most of you know, there are actually 3 major statewide offices, not 2, that are being recounted. National media doesn't always want to talk about the agriculture secretary, and that's actually the most interesting one for the purposes of the recount, and actually could switch sides. The 2 that most people know about is governor and Senate, and there are actually other recounts that are going on in the state of Florida. There are 2 state reps, a state senate, and a number of city elections as well. Now, the easiest one to report on will actually be the governor's race, and should be the one that's over the quickest. Now, in Florida, to do a recount, the difference between the winner and the person who comes a second is automatic if it's less than 0.5% or 0.5%. Ron DeSantis is up by 0.41%. And in the history of recounts, and there have been 38 of them from statewide office, county, city, everything in between. The total margin of change has been 0.0016. There's almost no chance that any of these runoffs are actually going to change anything, at least in the machine recount, which is what they're going to do now. Now, they all have to be certified by Thursday, and as people in Broward and Palm Beach can tell you, that is, well, not always the case. The initial ballots for early voting, which here in Florida, we actually allow that, and absentee, domestic, are supposed to all be counted a half an hour after the polls close on election night. And, well, Broward and Palm Beach clearly violated those rules. And that's where the fun can begin. Now, with this race being not really that close, and they're supposed to all be counted by Thursday, and Palm Beach has already said that they will not get their recount done by that time, and Broward, who didn't start their recount until Tuesday morning, somehow says that they can finish by Thursday. It's not going to happen. Because the vote margin is 0.41 and probably not going to move very much, I expect that Ron DeSantis will be declared the winner on Thursday. Now, Andrew Gillum, the Democratic opponent, he may challenge the results. He may challenge to get those votes counted. And if there is a liberal judge in South Florida, which there will be, he may actually get his wish to get his ballots counted. But at the end of the day, it will not clear 0.25, which is the next step in the process. Now, if the votes are 0.25% or 0.25% or less, then there can be a hand recount. And the hand recount basically, as with the machine recount, goes like this. They feed in all the ballots. Anything that is deemed a undervote or an overvote is basically put to the side. They put all of the ballots that actually reads the machine, they put it to the side, and then they hand recount these undervotes and overvotes. Overvotes are when you mark multiple spots on a list. Undervotes is when you mark 0 spots on the list. And what they'll do is they'll look at it, see if anything read, and it basically flies like this. For the big pile, they literally just look at a particular line, they line it up, just like a machine, and basically they'll just go A, 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 B, B, A, A, and they'll do that until they're done. On the side that doesn't have this count, Florida has to decide what is the voter intent. And voter intent can be incredibly annoying and not necessarily true. How hard is it to bubble in a ballot? Apparently, it's really, really hard. Now, if you put an X on a ballot, or you circle a candidate's name, that may be defined as voter intent, that you wanted to vote for that person. Again, this is Florida. How hard is it to bubble in a circle? But apparently it is. The same thing will happen if, say, you put an X over the candidate's name and bubbled in the name below it. Okay, the bubble in the name below it is probably right. But what if you bubble it in both and put an X over the top? Does that mean that you didn't want to vote for the first person, you want to vote for the second? And you're just lazy and you didn't want to, ask for a new ballot? Again, that's all up to voter intent. That has to all be done by Saturday. Also on Saturday, overseas ballots have to be counted as well. And so on Saturday, if it's this is where the fun begins, because that's actually when the vote is supposed to be final certified. If they don't get their hand recount done by Saturday, then they're supposed to default to the machine recount. If they don't get their machine recount done by Thursday, they default to what they released on the Saturday previous. Now, these are where all the legal stuff is going to kick in. Now, Bill Nelson is going to lose on his recount. He's running for Senate. And again, his margin is like 0.18. And again, the closest that we've ever seen on a machine recount is 0.0018. Not close. And hand recounts are incredibly rare. Now, his team has said that they believe that the undervotes in Broward has not been because of a ballot design issue, even though, while yes, in Congressional District 24, there was massive undervoting for between Senate and governor. There was undervoting in just about every single precinct, around 1%, far greater than any other county in the state of Florida. But they think that there was a voter machine error. Okay, so they're gonna go to court and say that they need to have that machine recalibrated. They're also gonna sue to make sure that every machine count is done, and then they're gonna hand recount, and then they're gonna want the long form hand recount, which is basically, remember I told you to be the stack over here and a stack over here, and the stack over here will be everything that's just sort of, they'll go through and go A, B, 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 B. They want it all red. Now, Rick Scott will sue in state court and basically say that that's some Barbra Streisand. And unfortunately for him, because Republicans have not controlled the state Supreme Court in the entirety of the 20 years that Republicans have actually been governors, they will probably deem that, yes, he will get the long form hand recount, which will go one by one by one. Probably you won't see the senator until May. There will be other legal challenges. Somebody will probably sue in Bay County. Bay County is one of the counties that was hit by the Hurricane Michael. And in Bay County, even though the governor did sign an executive order that gave a lot more latitude to those damaged by Michael, he specifically said no online email ballots. And in Bay County, the supervisor election allowed it. Now, somebody has to sue to deny those votes. And that will probably, because Bay is generally a Republican county, at least in this election, I imagine that some campaign, maybe this will be where Nikki Fried, the Democratic Attorney General candidate, will ask to have those ballots removed. It's less a PR problem for her to do it. There is very little precedent, and again, it is against Florida law, and it was against the executive order signed by the governor. However, overseas ballots, which are counted on Saturday, 10 days after the election, do allow for fax machines and electronic voting. I found that out this year. A friend of mine who is in China, and he's like, I voted by fax. And we all went, what? And he goes, yeah, because he's in China. He can vote by fax. He doesn't have to go through a long paper trail, especially since, democracy not really a thing in China. So they will sue in that court. Now, in Broward, where you've heard Republicans say that, well, yeah, there's been fraud committed. Well, again, fraud is a legal definition. I'll let for the lawyer people down there to make their comments, but there were 205 provisional ballots that were accepted. Provisional ballots are ballots that, for whatever reason, the person who comes to vote is not believed to be a legal voter. It can be that signatures don't match. They might be an ex-con and the vote shouldn't be there. They're in the wrong precinct. They're in the wrong county. Could be that they've already voted. There's a ton of reasons why this happens. Non-citizen. In fact, you can look online where Palm Beach County, you had a vote get rejected for a non-citizen, and two Democratic observers that were lawyers objected to them rejecting this ballot as a non-citizen. Again, maybe they know something we don't know, but it was reported as being a non-citizen. In this case, there were, of the 205 provisional ballots, there were 20 that had already been rejected, and the Broward Supervisor of Elections commingled them. No way to separate, no way to know who was legal and unlegal. And they counted all 205. Now, Rick Scott, I imagine, and Matt Caldwell, who is the Republican Attorney General candidate, or agriculture candidate, will probably sue to block those votes. And again, depending on how it appeals and how quickly they go, we'll see if either the Bay County or Broward County votes are rejected. Now, Matt Caldwell, who is the only one of these three to have had the lead on Tuesday and then have it lost when quote, all of the votes were counted, he may have a separate case, and it's a more interesting one. The agriculture commissioner is 0.05%. And what Matt Caldwell may do is because, again, all early and absentee ballots, domestic, are supposed to be counted 30 minutes after the votes are, after the polls are closed on election night. What Matt Caldwell may sue in court is to reject any ballot counted in Broward after a certain time. Now, they failed, and he could also apply this in Palm Beach County, as they also did not certify their early and absentee ballot on time. It'll be very interesting, and it could be a federal case, because while state court and a liberal Democratic state Supreme Court can do pretty much whatever it wants, we found that out from 2000, Matt Caldwell could have his 14th Amendment rights, he could make that claim, equal protection rights, denied by Broward and Palm Beach counties, not counting the vote correctly and following the state law. His is very interesting if that goes through. Again, I'm not the legal expert. I'll let you guys decide, and I'll let a court decide. But his is actually pretty interesting. So we may have an agriculture commissioner who's not settled for a very, very long time, especially if it's in a federal court. I have no idea who takes over, no idea if Nikki Fried gets to set up an office, if she gets to serve and not serve. Now, is there precedent in the state of Florida for removing an officer after they've been elected? Absolutely. In Miami, the city of Miami to be exact, in 1997, Joe Carollo was voted out of office by Xavier Suarez, and Xavier Suarez was found to, well, his campaign, maybe without the knowledge of the candidate, we'll never know, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, there were illegal absentee ballots given. The vote at the time required 50 plus 1. But when you remove the extra Xavier Suarez ballots out of the office, Joe Carollo actually had a majority, did not need a runoff, and would not have lost said runoff. So there is a precedent in it. Granted, it's 25-year-old precedent, or actually it's 21-year-old precedent at this point. So we'll see. There'll be other legal arguments, and again, I'll let lawyers decide it below, but that's sort of the long and the short about Florida recounts. But here's what's probably going to happen at the end of the day. Ron DeSantis is going to be your governor, Rick Scott's going to be your senator, and Nikki Fried's going to be your agriculture commissioner, and in 4 years she'll be running for a different office. Like and subscribe and comment below.